Level 1 is the fundamentals of wealth creation, and we're going to start with, what even is a millionaire? It's someone whose net worth, excluding their primary residence, is in excess of $1 million. Assets minus liabilities. For example, let's say you own a $1 million house and you owe $500,000 on it. If you had nothing else saved up in your bank account, which I would hope that you did, but let's just say you had nothing else saved up in your bank account, then your net worth would be $500K. In this instance, you would not be a millionaire, right? Now let's call this a $1 million house and you owed nothing on it, your net worth would be $1 million. Now, there's a difference between having a liquid net worth versus a net worth. A liquid net worth is assets that you can trade in and out of. So if I had $1 million in cash in my bank account versus owning assets that were worth $1 million, those are different things. And we go to step 2 in this little journey of ours, which is equity. Because there's 2 ways that you can become a millionaire. You can earn your way there or you can own your way there. And the faster way is to own your way there. And that's what I'm gonna walk you through. So I'm gonna walk you through both examples of earning your way there, which is how I first thought it was, versus owning. So if I wanna earn my way to $1 million, then I'm going to need to make $2 million over X period of time, and then divide that by 2 because of taxes to get to my $1 million. Let's say I'm making $200,000 a year, and I made $200,000 a year for a decade. That's assuming that you saved 100% of your income. You'd be able to earn your way to $1 million in liquid net worth. On the other hand, you can own your way, meaning that you own assets, either, which could be businesses or real estate, which are probably the 2 most common assets that people own that are trying to invest. Don't diversify. Diversification is for weenies. Diversification, to quote Uncle Warren, is a hedge against ignorance. You only diversify if you don't know what you're doing. The more you know, the less risky it is. I actually am approaching diversification from a focus perspective, which is what's the one thing that you're going to invest your most valuable resource? Because when you're early on, you don't have that much money. So your most valuable resource isn't your money, it's your time and your attention. There's 2 ways we can allocate it. V1, we do little allocations like this. I'm gonna look at crypto, I'm gonna look at day trading, I'm gonna look at Forex, I'm gonna look at flipping houses, I'm gonna look at long-term investing in real estate, I'm gonna look into Airbnb, I'm gonna look into starting an ATM business, I'm gonna look at, you get the idea, right? So let's say this is you, and this is your time and attention that you have to pursue any new opportunity. So you say, I need 7 income streams because the average millionaire has 7 income streams. So I'm gonna spread myself thin between 7 different opportunities. And while I do that, I'm gonna be multitasking, trying to fill different cups at the same time with different colors. And I'm somehow gonna wait until one of these things takes off, right? I have to see which ones of these will work. But the reality is, it's not which of these ones will work. Any of them could work if you put the work in, but you have to reach a threshold. Once you get to the top, the extra cash starts spilling over and you actually have a profitable opportunity. Which one of these cups is closer to spilling over? You going in on one thing or you spreading yourself between 7? And the reason that this myth continues to proliferate is because it's absolutely true that people who are the wealthiest have multiple income streams. But what's not true is about how they got there. The wealthiest people in the world go all in on one income stream and they keep adding it up over and over and over again until it overflows. And then once it overflows, because they're making so much money from their one opportunity, they then start diversifying back between the other different ways. But they made their wealth focusing on one thing, and then they maintain their wealth by distributing it. You don't make money by splitting your attention up, you make it by focusing on the one thing that matters most. V2, you say, what do I really like? Well, I do have experience doing this one thing, and so I'm going to ignore all of these other opportunities and just go all in on one thing. The reason I'm such a big advocate of focusing your attention on one thing is that this is where you get disproportionate returns. Because I think it's very arrogant to think that your 10% of your attention, where you're not even that good at business to begin with, spread between 10 things, is somehow going to compete against somebody who's putting all of their effort on one thing. Building the tower and then reaching a max that I can't go past anymore. Versus building it so that I get people to say, wow, this thing's amazing. And so then they also tell people for me. So that when I get to that point, I actually built it with a huge base of foundation and I can keep stacking on top of it. And that's the difference in terms of mindset and perspective of how you actually build something that's going to last. And then along the way, with your team and the people that you hire, rather than saying, hey, I just need a body in the seat, I just need a person to do this thing, you're like, who here has talent? And I might interview 20 people for one role rather than 3 so I get the right person. If you feel stuck all the time and you can't make progress, you usually need to go back to the beginning and realize that you built a vertical business that had no foundation to begin with. And now we have our foundation built for level 1 of wealth creation. Level 2 is all about the actual tactics of getting to making your first million. And it starts with finding a hungry crowd. Let me explain what I mean by find a hungry crowd. This guy started a business selling hot dogs, and he was given one wish from a genie of what competitive advantage he would be able to have. The first thought he had was like, maybe I'll make my hot dogs cheaper. The genie shook his head and was like, no. He's like, what if I made my hot dogs taste better? And the genie said, no, don't waste your wish on that. Maybe I'll just make mine the fastest cooking so I can serve the hot dogs faster. The genie said, that's not what you want to waste your wish on. The genie looked at him, holding the hot dogs and buns in hand, and said, it's not about the hot dogs. If you want to build an amazing business, you want to put your hot dog stand on the best corner in front of a starving crowd. Because if your hot dog stand is on the corner, it doesn't matter how cheap they are, how good they taste, how fast they cook. The moment that hungry crowd walks out and sees your hot dog stand, you're going to sell it every time. So right off the bat, I want to talk about two key concepts when it comes to finding a hungry crowd. One is that we have to understand that the market is always going to be the strongest variable in how much money you make, right? If you're selling toilet paper during COVID, you're going to sell out, right? Because it didn't matter how good your toilet paper was, there was a starving crowd. And so supply demand, which is one of the reasons that we have it as our logo, it is the strongest force in all of economics and business. It is the core thing that everything else is built on. And so you have to understand that the market is number one. The next lever on this is the offer that you give people, right? If you have a superior offer, then if you're in a normal market, that'll be the next lever that you have. If I say, hey, start for free, and I only get paid if you get some sort of result, and it's a truly free, low risk, amazing value, and you get results tomorrow offer, then you're gonna sell 10 times, 100 times more than someone who just has like a, you pay me, and maybe you get results, and maybe you don't type of service or product. The final thing is your ability to persuade. Ideally, go after a really big market with an amazing offer and be a hell of a persuader. But the thing is you can be terrible at persuading and have a terrible offer and say you can only buy my toilet paper in 80 roll chunks or I'm not gonna sell it to you and still sell out during COVID. But if it's not COVID, then it's how can I make the toilet paper offer that I have significantly more compelling? And if all the toilet paper offers look the same, then it just comes down to how well I can persuade people to buy mine. That's concept one when it comes to finding a hungry crowd. Effort is what you have to start doing that you weren't doing, that you don't want to do as a result of the purchase. Sacrifice are things that you have to stop doing that you wish you could do, but can't do anymore as a result of the purchase. And so for our lovely young lady, she's gonna have to sacrifice Margarita Mondays and Taco Tuesdays. She's no longer gonna be able to get to do that even though she wants to do that. She's gonna have to sacrifice sleeping in on the weekends, and she's gonna have to start waking up early and working out and eating food that she doesn't like. And this is a proxy. It doesn't have to be 2 locations. You could be hiring 2 people, hiring 2 reps. It doesn't matter. Or 2 more developers if you're a software company. It works the same. 2 more per month costs X dollars. We have Y profit. So all we do is we say whatever the profit is at the end of the month, we subtract this, and then we have a watermark above which we always leave in the account. And then everything else, we distribute as cash flow. That's a different way of doing it. This is a little bit more aggressive if you want to maintain a certain growth rate. This one is a little bit more flexible. It really depends on you and your tolerance for risk. And that's one thing that I'd say I pride myself on in terms of our ability to help portfolio companies and newer founders who are creating their first kind of generational wealth, is these are hard conversations to have and are really important conversations to have. Our second level, which is setting goals. And I think this is a really misunderstood topic. Most people think like, oh, I need SMART goals or specific measurable goals. Bad. I'll show you how I do that. All right, so rather than focusing on outcomes, we focus on activities. So the goal shouldn't be what happens, but the goal should be what we do. I had a buddy of mine, so he started doing 10 grand a month, 20 grand a month, 30 grand a month. And then he would fall off. And I was like, why do you keep falling off? He said, well, I make the money and I hit my goal, so then I like ease off the gas pedal. And I said, it's because you're defining your goals the wrong way. I see you as not hitting your goal every time you're not doing the activities. And so I said, make the activities the goal, and then you'll hit it every time and more. People. So I'm going to explain a concept called the quad marketing calendar. All right. So you think about this as internal and external to your business. Now you've got prospects on this side. We got customers, candidates, you got employees. And so you actually need to be marketing in all 4 directions at all times. Most people spend all their time advertising here. They say, okay, I'm gonna spend all my resources advertising to get prospects. And then they convert those prospects over this money line, and they turn those prospects into customers. But the problem is, if you only advertise in this direction, who's gonna deliver the thing to these customers? Well, you need employees, which means that you also need to be advertising to get candidates to turn into employees. You can strengthen your reputation by putting more and similar types of experiences together. So you're like, oh, he's got a strong interest in this thing. Now, if every single one of these would be different, and some of these were weeds, it would be a lot harder to understand what is the point of this thing. And let's say that you had a drunk driving accident, right? All of a sudden, how different does this bouquet look? Which shows you how one negative experience in your life can actually affect how people see the rest of everything else. And so when we're thinking about brand or building a reputation, I like to think of it as what flowers do I want in my bouquet and which things am I ultimately trying to emphasize or not include at all. And what associations are going to be ones that strengthen this and which are going to be ones that break it apart. So reputation is a different word for saying what a brand is. And a brand is simply an association between something you know and something you don't know. When we're building a brand, you want to associate all the things that you want someone to think about you with the thing that they don't know yet, which is you. Now, for me, the more my personal brand has grown, the more I have transposed Acquisition.com's association with me. And so now when my team goes out to the airport and is wearing a hat that says Acquisition.com, people are like, dude, can I buy that hat from you? Because they've gotten value from my videos in my books. They see an association with that value and they want to pay for it. Compounding is when something multiplies unto itself. All right, so if I have $100 and it compounds at 10% a year, next year it'll be at $110. The year after that, I add 10% of this number, which is I'm 121, right? And then the next year, 133, and so forth. And so you notice that even though the time between these intervals remains the same, the actual amount that we're growing continues to rise proportionally to how much we have, which is how Uncle Warren can have $100 billion and still make another $15 billion this coming year. Right? It's because he understands the power of compounding, and they call it the eighth wonder of the world. And in the last decade, Warren Buffett has made more money than he made over the rest of his career. And that's because the longer you do it, the better it gets. Which is why some of these early wealth building fundamentals are so important. Compounding only unlocks if you have a long-term perspective, because this early first 4 years, I mean, decent, but not bad. But if you do that over 30 years, it becomes unbelievable. And I wanted to find a term for you that has been really helpful for me, which is patience, right? A lot of people are like, be patient, be patient. What does that actually mean? Being patient simply means figuring out what to do in the meantime. As I make this video, I'm being patient for my stocks that are growing right now. While I'm making this video, I'm being patient for the cup that I want to lose some fat. While I'm making this video right now, I'm being patient for some of our portfolio companies to capitalize on the reinvestments that we're making right now. But I'm making a video. And so what you have to do is that when you stick to the plan, sometimes the best thing you can do is ignore it and let it be, which means that you don't interrupt the compounding process. In my opinion, there are really just two levels of wealth. Level one is that you have all of your personal needs taken care of. The second level of wealth is the unlimited level of wealth, which is that you just always want to keep using money to make more money. And that means that you've progressed from solving your personal needs to playing a game. And so I think what a lot of people do is they can never figure out what enough is for them. And there was a period of my life earlier on where I was like, okay, let me figure out all these rich people things. I bought a Bentley, I was like, let's go out to all the nicest restaurants every single night. But the thing is that to live like the 1%, it's actually not that expensive. The next level of this, which is the game itself. Now there's a reason that my podcast is called The Game. And it's because at this point, I play the game because I enjoy the game. And so the whole concept of enjoying your wealth is not about not working. And I think this is one of the big myths. You might feel that way now because you hate what you do. And the fact that you hate what you do is one of the reasons you might not ever get the wealth you want. And so it's not about not working. It's about getting addicted to freedom. And freedom, again, doesn't mean you don't work. It means you have the option to work. And so I believe that humans are our best when we do work that's worth doing, when we have purpose that we derive from the effort and the toil that we put in every day. And you get weaker when you don't have an opposing force that's as strong as you. If you lift weights and you never lift even close to your maximum, you eventually start losing muscle. And I think it's the same thing with mental strength. Unless you're continually raising the bar, you eventually atrophy. It's use it or lose it. And so most of us want to become the best versions of ourselves. And in order to become the best versions of ourselves, we have to increase the difficulty of the level that we're playing on. Imagine playing a game that you've beaten 100 times and then you put it on the easiest level. It gets boring. We think we want easier, but we don't. We want to do things that we enjoy more. And enjoyment and easy are not necessarily the same thing. And so if we're trying to enjoy our wealth, it's finding the things that we can lose ourselves in for the rest of our lives. And being okay with the fact that that thing may shift over time in terms of what it looks like or what it feels like. And if you fast forward all the way to the end of the movie, as a reminder, you die and you can't take any of it with you. And so even if you finish your life with this big pile of money at the end, you still have to push it over the edge of the cliff, right? Or it just falls off to other people whose hands are here because you're dead. And so reminding myself of that fact every single day reminds me that the whole point of the game is to play the game. And by playing the game, we win the game. Because the best games in life, and I'll finish with this, the best games in life are infinite games, not finite games. And I'll tell you the difference. The point isn't to get married, the point is to stay married. When it comes to business, the point isn't to win at business. The point is to stay in business and literally keep playing. And so when we think about the greatest games that we play as humans, we have to take this infinite frame, or we fool ourselves into a false finite prison that we keep wondering why we don't feel like we're winning when we get to the finish line, because we never realized that there was no finish line to begin with, and the fact that we were playing the game secured our victory by its very nature. And so this realization helped me reframe how I thought about spending my time so that I could enjoy my wealth. The point for me is to stay in business and see who I can become in this process. The point is for me to see, what does it look like at 20 years of marriage? With health, it's not that like, cool, I've been training for 20 years. I'm in decent shape. I wonder what it looks like when I'm healthy at 50. Because if you're only in shape for 6 weeks of your life or 6 months of your life or even 6 years of your life, who cares? If you only have a good marriage for a few years of your life, who cares? If you're only in business and then go out of business really quickly and then you get out of the game, who cares? And which is why the biggest takeaway that you can have, and this is from Winston Churchill, you win as long as you never quit. And so, that's how you enjoy your life and your wealth, and there's your blueprint.